This morning, new fallout as Donald Trump faces a stunning legal filing with just a few weeks left in his presidential run. A judge has unsealed never before seen evidence in special counsel Jack Smith's election subversion case, as federal prosecutors now try to prove Donald Trump should be prosecuted under the Presidential Immunity Act, basically that he was not the president in his capacity when he did some of these things. Smith writing, at its core, the defendant's scheme was a private one. He extensively used private actors and his campaign infrastructure to attempt to overturn the election results and operated in a private capacity as a candidate. Former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig joining us now. First to you, Ellie, we are seeing an incredible none of us, the public, the media, no one was privy to until Judge Tanya Chutkan unsealed them. Why were they unsealed?
Well, Sarah, this is all about immunity. So if we remember a year ago or so, Jack Smith returned the indictment on Donald Trump relating to January 6th. It was a very broad indictment. Since then, though, this past summer, the U.S. Supreme Court said a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff in this indictment is immune and has to come out. Some of it is in a sort of gray area and you on the district court have to figure it out. And some of it can probably stay in. So this is Jack Smith saying, okay, Judge Chutkan, we've taken out the stuff that he's definitely immune for. And here's us defending the rest of it, arguing why he's not immune. And the sentence you just showed, Sarah, uses the word private 3 times. That's the gist of Jack Smith's argument that Donald Trump's conduct here was not being done as president, it was done in his private capacity.
Yeah, he may have been in office as the president, but he was doing this in his campaign or private capacity. It's a really good point, Ellie. Jeremy, this is a lot to read through. It's a book. It's 165 some odd pages. What was your takeaway from sort of what you saw in this indictment?
Some of this is sort of jaw on the floor. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that the former president said these things. And not to be too tongue-in-cheek, but if I'm J.D. Vance, I'm looking at Mike Pence and I'm saying, I don't want to be in that same position and be thrown under that proverbial bus, or worse, if things go sideways. Some of the things are shocking. Let them riot. I don't care. Some of the words that this president uttered and said are really should shock your conscience, whether you're a Republican or Democrat. And it all constructively builds a few critical, important elements. You see the intent, you see that knowledge, that information that he had, that he knew he lost. And while it's not required, that sort of premeditation effort to scheme to get back and stay in office.
I'm going to talk about a couple of those things that stood out to me, because you're talking about it's like bombs dropping over and over and over again in this particular indictment. The prosecutor said they have evidence that revealed an aide talked to him about Vice President Pence, that he was in peril, that he was in danger. And as this was escalating, President Trump replied, according to the indictment, so what? And then the second one was when his lawyers were talking to him, that his false claims that the election had been marred by widespread fraud, that those would not hold up in court. And Trump responding, according to the indictment, the details don't matter. Ellie, I do want to ask you about this. This is about intent. Is this, how do you fight this and obviously these are just allegations, right? They're being made by the prosecutor. They have to be proven in court beyond a reasonable doubt. But how do you respond to some of these things that are in this indictment if you are his lawyers?
Boy, okay, that's a tough spot. Well, first of all, I have to say,
Sorry, Ellie.
The comment, I don't care, is something Donald Trump said. But I do have to correct something that was just said. The let them riot comment was not something allegedly said by Donald Trump. That was said by somebody else, according to Jack Smith. How do I respond to this if I'm Donald Trump's lawyers? Look, the allegations are very damning, no question about it. I think the response that we're hearing from Trump's lawyers is this is not a trial. This is Jack Smith unilaterally laying out his evidence. It's not been subject to the rules of evidence. In fact, some of the stuff that Jack Smith puts in there, he says, I don't even believe this can come into the trial, but I'm telling you, Judge Chutkan, now that's fine to do, but it means the jury wouldn't see it. And I would argue this has not been subject to cross-examination. So anytime a prosecutor has the floor to himself or herself, I've had it, you can make a quite compelling case. But I think Trump's team for now is going to say he has a right to defend himself, and he will when the time's right.
How successful, Ellie, do you think this case will be? Because it has changed. It had to change because of the Supreme Court ruling, and it has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, look, my position all along, Sarah, is that Donald Trump was deservedly indicted for what he did leading up to January 6th. I believe that the case against him is strong, but the Supreme Court's immunity decision changed everything. It already removed a large pillar of this case, and whatever Judge Chutkan decides to do here, whatever she leaves in or out of the case, that gets appealed back up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So it's possible the Supreme Court says more of the case has to be removed. It's possible that they do that to a point where the indictment can't even stand on its own legs and never gets to trial at all.
We're now learning what this filing is, sort of in a legal sense. To you, Jeremy, where does this put us as far as timing? Because Donald Trump wants to make sure this does not go forward before the election, and there is no chance, I think, at this point that it would.
Well, the trial itself is certainly not going forward before the election, and Judge Chutkan set some deadlines up in October for responses. But this is really, it's opening that Pandora's box. It's allowing people to go down that rabbit hole, because the amount of information here is really allowing, within reason, Jack Smith to, I don't want to say try his case in public, but I remind people that this isn't Jack Smith's doing. I mean, he had to respond to the Supreme Court saying that there is immunity for these official acts, and then there's those that are within the duty of the president that are perceived and really are going to be subject to immunity. So he had to do this. He had to put this forth for the court, and it was the court's decision, not Jack Smith's decision ultimately, to present this to the public and allow the public to see it subject to some redactions. But it doesn't change the timeline in the sense of having a trial by November. That's not happening.
We will see, but there are a lot of details in this case, and the prosecutor putting its evidence sort of out there for the public to see. Jeremy Saland, thank you so much. Ellie Honig, always a pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.